Hello, Adriana Cabrera. Nice to have you here. Thank you for giving us the time to interview you and do a Q&A with youth from LA City. And you are running for Council District 9. So we want to start this introduction question with, if you can tell us about yourself, your campaign, and why you are running for City Council to represent your district.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all. And thank you for inviting me to be here today. I am running to represent the community that raised me, South Central Los Angeles. I was born and raised here. I was actually born in the year 1992, the year of the Rodney King uprisings. And honestly, I've been involved for half of my life, which is I'm 29. Started getting involved when I was 12 years old, because a lot of my neighbors, my classmates, they're not here with us anymore. A lot of them are no longer here. They lost their lives in gang violence, police brutality, health-related issues, or, a lot of them had to move out of the community they were raised because they could no longer afford to live here. I was raised here with both of my parents. My parents are from Puebla, Mexico. I'm an indigenous woman of color, and I take a lot of pride in that. Because, like most people in our community, we have a lot of trauma that has shaped our resiliency. A lot of us, especially for me, I had to get involved at a young age because we had to survive to get involved. Like, it wasn't for a career. I never pictured myself running for office. I only decided to run for office to give voice to young people because we do not have a voice in the city of Los Angeles right now. Our experiences are valid. A lot of people say that youth are the leaders of tomorrow. No, we're the leaders of today, because every single policy that's being enacted in the city impacts us as well. But there's a lot of ageism that does not recognize our struggles as young people. And, growing up, I also had my mom, who, when she migrated to the United States, she didn't have a high level of education. She had only first and second grade. And so I learned English by interpreting for my parents, in English and Spanish. We were in one bedroom with 10 people. And to me, it's really sad to see that 16 years later, that's the reality for a lot of families. We have normalized violence. We have normalized a lot of the living situations that are not something to be proud of in South Central. And I recognize that it is systemic. So that's why I'm running to change the system and challenge the status quo.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Adriana. I definitely agree. There is a lot of changes that need to happen in our communities. And yes, youth are, everything that's happening affects the youth now. So if we want a better future, we have to act and fight now. So I'll go ahead and pass it over to Giovanna, who will be asking the question on the homelessness and the housing crisis.
Thank you, Araceli. Thank you, Adriana, for giving us that intro. As somebody who was born and raised in South Central LA myself, I've definitely seen a lot of homelessness happening throughout our community. And this is definitely affecting many of our youth as well. And so according to the 2020 Greater Los Angeles homeless count, there are approximately 4,061 youth who are unhoused, which does not include a youth living in unstable housing. With the Greater Los Angeles count happening again this year, this number can definitely go up. Do you believe youth homelessness is an issue? How do you plan on addressing this? And what policies would you enact to make sure affordable housing is available to all, especially for young people?
Yes, that's definitely a very important issue. When elected, the number one action that I would do is declare homelessness a humanitarian crisis. People are dying every day. 4 people who are experiencing homelessness die in LA. Not sure why our current elected officials do not prioritize that issue, but honestly, it is really alarming to see that a lot of those people are youth. And even in community college, a lot of people have to drop out of school because they have to choose between working or going to school, right? For me, education is very important. And so I definitely would work with community colleges to bring housing for people who are experiencing homelessness, particularly youth. I would also work with LAUSD to ensure that we identify the families that need supportive housing so that they can be connected with the appropriate services that they need so that they can combat, the struggles that they're having and overcome a lot of the barriers that come with being homeless. A lot of families here are not eligible for programs due to citizenship status. And so as a result, a lot of the children are in the streets. Because of that, I've actually spent a whole year feeding people who are living in the streets and a lot of families experiencing poverty. And one of the things that we found is that a lot of people do not know where resources are. So also amplifying resources is very important, working with developers to make sure that they provide real affordable housing that's available to the average person and not people that have, a really high income and or the perfect credit score, because for a lot of people that experience homelessness, the reason why they're experiencing homelessness has to do with poverty, right? And a lot of trauma. I met a lot of youth that they need help with dealing with mental health crises that they had disputes with their family. And so if there's not just one solution, it's intersectional. But the main, in my opinion, and based on my experience growing up in this side of town, it's poverty is the real root of homelessness. We are among the highest amount of people in the whole city living in poverty. And so if we want to tackle homelessness, we also have to tackle the other issues that come with it, like a building economic development in our community.
Thank you so much for answering that question. I definitely appreciate your answers. Homelessness is definitely very intersectional. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Michelle Crisanto, who's going to ask the next question about youth development.
Thank you, Giovanna. Hi, Adriana. It's nice to meet you. And as you may or may not know, the youth development department has finally been established, and now we're looking to build that up. And however, right now the city of Los Angeles currently invests in about $82 per youth, which is not enough for all LA youth in the city. So my question to you is, what are your plans to create more youth decision-making power in LA City Hall, and how will you create more pathway opportunities for youth employment aside from the Higher LA Youth Program?
Thank you for that question. So I do want to share that I've been before at your meetings when I used to work with the Department of Neighborhood Empowerment. I was the youngest neighborhood empowerment advocate in the department. Take a lot of pride in that. And unfortunately, I had to leave my job because a lot of people, actually 80% of the people who work in the city of Los Angeles are not even living in the city of Los Angeles. So a lot of our taxpayer money is going to the salaries of people who live outside of our city. Definitely will change that, and making sure that we strengthen the local targeted hiring program so that more people from communities experiencing poverty get prioritized, because our voice is needed. We are directly impacted and severely impacted by a lot of these decisions that people make in policy, right? Like in our elected officials, where the budget is going and our voice is not there. So I would definitely make sure that we strengthen that program, and also that I appoint people like you all to serve as commissioners, to have, the authority to have a voice, not just in a youth council, which is important, but also in the departments. The departments, they have commissions. We should have a perspective of a young person in every commission, because they make a lot of decisions that carry on a day-to-day basis. So that's definitely another thing I will be doing. And then most importantly, I will make sure that we launch a very strong civic engagement campaign with our local schools. I've actually helped more than 3,500 kids from first generation Black and Brown college students here in South Central. We know that our youth are one of the most resilient people in the city of Los Angeles, especially if you live in poverty, because it takes a lot for you to even make it out of high school, right? And we have to change that. And the only way to change that, it starts in our homes, it starts in our communities, it starts in our schools. So we'll be partnering up with local universities and LAUSD to launch the first labor center in District 9, because we don't have one. So that means that a lot of the jobs that we're taking are the back-breaking jobs with less pay. When I graduated from college, I'm the first one in my entire ancestor lineage to get a master's degree. I have 2 bachelor's, Chicano studies, political science, and public policy and management. And I came back to serve my community. They wanted to pay me $15 an hour. I'm like, that's not going to happen. So I had to go to East LA and work somewhere else, right? So in order for us to retain a lot of the youth to not move out from the communities that raise them, we have to give them those economic opportunities to grow, not just through employment, but also through entrepreneurial. A lot of people are talented. We have singers, poetry. We have people who do nails that are beautiful. We have so many people that have las ganas, to move ahead and like just thrive, but we don't have very basic resources in this side of town. So that will definitely be one of my priorities as well.
Thank you so much for your answer. Yeah, I do agree in the part that, we need youth voices in like the department, especially since they don't think that youth voices are important, but in reality it is, because we do make up a majority of the population. But now we will be moving on to public safety, on to the next topic, and I'll pass it over to Jackie.
Thank you, Michelle. Hi, Adriana. So yeah, I'll be asking about public safety. So in mid-2021, there were 18,753 youth arrests, according to data from the Advancement Project. In order to keep young people feeling safe in their communities, what is your plan to reduce crime, prevent youth from being victims of crime, and from being criminalized?
Great questions. I love the questions you're asking. So one of the so I have 3 priorities, and I think the 2 that you asked me are definitely there in order. But we definitely, for public safety, we need a new public safety system, because the current one is not working for us. And it's also rooted in a lot of racism. But I do understand that's going to take a really long time for it to happen, especially here in our communities where we have a lot of crime. And my number 1 priority, aside from, it's all intersectional, as I mentioned, is really funding community care programs. Community care programs are programs like what I mentioned. If you have a job, then you can afford having a home, because safety is not just policing, it's also having a place where you feel safe, right? So having a home where you can be sleeping at and not sleeping in your car in the street, having access to healthcare, right? It's also, your body, making sure that you're taking care of it and that you feel safe, walking in the community that you live in. So we definitely want to launch the first crisis response team within the city of Los Angeles that's composed of social workers, because a lot of the arrests that I've experienced with the youth that I work with for many years, a lot of them are over disputes or over very minor stuff that could be resolved if they have someone that they can dialogue with, right? And not just, arrest them. I remember very recently one person got arrested for, it was very small misdemeanor. So she basically got arrested because she went into someone's house that was renting her a room, and they displaced her, and she got really upset and broke the person's cell phone, and she spent the night in prison. So things like that are very traumatizing. A lot of people have a lot of anger, and that's because of trauma. And again, it's intersectional. So for me, the solution is investing more in community care programs, which includes the youth development department, because for us, like my philosophy as a candidate that's rooted in community is that we need to invest in people that are directly impacted. No one else knows the solutions than the people who are directly impacted. And for me, funding departments that provide community care is vital to making sure that we build a strong public safety system. Also, I do think we have to launch the very first legal aid center in South Central, because we don't have one. Everyone else in the city has one except for us. In that center, I love YJC, the Youth Justice Coalition. I worked with them in the past. I've actually sent, and I've gone there myself for legal advice, and I learned a lot from them. So I do think we need to expand programs like YJC, right, and create a legal center when people have trouble with the law enforcement. They know their rights, they know how to defend themselves, because a lot of people have lost their freedom because they don't have basic knowledge of how the legal system works.
Thank you for that answer. Yeah, I also feel like it's important to acknowledge that a lot of our systems, and especially our system with public safety, is rooted in racism. So thank you for that. And I will pass it over to Nadine to cover our question on mental health.
Thank you. During this pandemic, many of youth, including myself, have faced mental health issues, and there were very limited or no support services. So with that saying, globally, 1 in 7 10 to 25-year-olds experience a mental health disorder, with suicide being the 4th leading cause of death amongst young age group. My question is, how do you plan to address the youth mental health crisis, especially during this pandemic?
We need to fund more healing spaces. So in part of my campaign journey, and actually a lot of the work we've done, is creating spaces where we feel like we can connect with each other and be ourselves and not be judged. A lot of these programs, I can tell from experience working in the city myself, they're very disconnected from the realities that a lot of us face. There's a lot of gaslighting on top of the isms that we face every day. So I do think it's important for us to reimagine places like the library, right? And have healing circles there, fund more opportunities for people to express themselves through art, like, having spoken word opportunities, or opportunities for them to write about their experiences in the library. We have access as council members to create funding, to create policy, but also to work with different departments. So definitely have my commitment in transforming a lot of the buildings that we have, and making sure that we all have, access to like a person that can uplift our narratives and just provide those resources that we really need to combat mental health, because every issue you can think of is intersectional, as I mentioned, and it's also impacting our health. Okay, I ran out of time.
Thank you for answering my questions. No, we do need a lot of services for mental health. With that saying, I'm also going to be bringing up the next topic. Michelle will bring up the next topic about sustainability.
Thank you so much. And yes, I totally hear you. I used to also work for the city, and I had a lot of coworkers who were disconnected with what's happening in the community. We need folks that are in our communities to be in positions to be able to make a difference, right? And to be heard. So our next question is also about sustainability, and this one is one of the questions that the young people wanted to ask. So the Earth's climate is changing in response to increasing concentrations of greenhouse gases and particulate matter in the atmosphere, largely as the result of human activities. While many politicians have plans to address climate change, what is your vision and plan when it comes to making it easier to live sustainably in your council district and dealing with global warming?
Yes, that's a very important question. I live next to the city of Vernon. Literally, I live behind this park. The city of Vernon is right next to my house. And so we have a lot of people in our community that have suffered because of the pollution that we breathe every day. My mom works there. A lot of my tios have, been diagnosed with cancer, or just I actually went to a middle school where there was contamination of lead, LA Academy Middle School. So it's everywhere, right? The effects of global warming and the effects of pollution and environmental injustice. So definitely we have to educate more people about the Green New Deal. No one in South Central really knows what the Green New Deal is unless you're involved in the environmental, justice movement. So I want to work really well with community-based organizations to give incentives to them to educate people in our community about this. Simple things like styrofoams, and having different alternatives to like the plastic that we use a lot. I'm Mexican, and my family is Mexican, Guatemalan, and Salvadorian. We use a lot of things that on a daily basis that we do not think about or like reflect on how it's polluting our environment. So it's just making things relatable to them. I support having solar panels, introducing people about how it will make a difference if you have solar panel lights versus, the traditional lights that take a lot of energy. I've done that with my own family, and they're like, oh yeah, we save money too. I'm like, yeah, you know, because you don't have to plug the lights to the LADWP. So things like that for me are very important. So education is key, and also making it relatable, right? Making sure that we get more trees because we do not have trees. We have a food desert as well. We have gardens. We have the South Central Farm here a few blocks away from my house, and the city took that away from us, right? So politics have impacted and shaped the conditions that we have here, also within the environment. So it's also making sure that we build community with the companies that are producing all these toxins and educate them like, hey, you're literally killing us while we sleep, right? And bring it starts with them because they're the ones that are literally producing all of that, right? So working with them, talking to their employees, and trying to find alternatives and incentives to support those small businesses that do employ a lot of our community, and letting them know, you know, there's other alternatives. Let's start looking into them, right? Work with the state and the federal government to provide them with some grants to help them transform their business into a more sustainable approach.
Thank you so much for answering that. And yes, we have to make sure that we're listening to our community members and making it also in a way where we're teaching them with like what we live on a daily basis, right? Because like maybe like, for example, like for mental health, right? Like yoga might not be my thing, right? But like I like doing Zumba. So how do we connect it to like the community so they could be able to understand and see ways that they could be able to switch some of their everyday stuff to be more environmentally friendly. And I know we close to an end on our interview, but I'm gonna pass it over to Araceli so she could do the closing.
Yes, so thank you once again, Adriana, for being here with us today. So that has concluded our questions. So now you'll have 2 minutes to do your closing statements. So this is an opportunity to just close us out, share anything else you would want to share about your campaign with the community, and any last words.
Yeah, so thank you for inviting me to be here. Always remember that your vote is your power right now. A lot of people do not have the privilege to vote. So if you do, please use it. In our campaign, we are being led by young people. I'm actually the youngest candidate. We have youth here. This is Poetic Scorpio. You've seen TikTok, follow her, Poetic.Scorpio on TikTok. Also on TikTok and all my social medias are Adriana for LA City. My website is adrianaforla.org. Please connect with us because honestly, we have to plant those seeds, right? That our community is not for sale. We are inspiring a lot of candidates to also hashtag their neighborhood. We have Chinatown is not for sale, Challenger is not for sale, Lincoln Heights is not for sale. And to us, that's a big thing that we're very proud of us because it's not just about winning an election, it's also about building community. And we're one of the few campaigns that are doing that. So please support us. We can only win with your support. And remember, the election is going to be June 7th, but you do have, you know, mail-in ballots that are already arriving. So you can vote before then. That'd be great. As a write-in candidate, you do have to write my name where it says write-in. We want to send a strong message, you know, that it is possible for us to win as a write-in candidate. Some of our parents cross the border. You know, that writing my name in is nothing compared to the struggles we live through every single day, right? So please support us. We would really appreciate your support, and also, you know, share our message with the youth that you know